Mom?
Okay, I think we're set.
All set, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the December 1st, 2021 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. We'll open with a roll call. Mr. Urice?
Here.
Ms. Hofstadter?
Here.
Mr. Chiocchio?
Here.
Mr. Sylvain?
Here.
I think I see a Mr. Haas there.
I'm here.
Gary Renz is absent. And Chairman Finaldi is here. Thank you for attending, Kevin, but we do not have to seat an alternate this evening. We've got all the regular members, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
he needs to be seated when you recuse yourself for need, James.
Gotcha.
That's why.
That's why I'm here.
My bad. Okay, let me just open with my intro, my standard intro for Zoom meetings. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Just a heads up, if you call in, we may have to mute and unmute your phone to avoid an echo. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Before we get started, actually, we could go right through. Let's do the acceptance of the minutes first, Commission members. The minutes of the November 17th meeting were previously distributed. Are there any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I did catch one small typo on the attendance that Joanne has already fixed. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Perry. Good catch. What he's referring to is actually on the very first page of the minutes. Second paragraph is that present were Robert Chiocchio, Arnold Finaldi, Helen Hofstadter, Perry Sylvain, Joel Urice, and alternate. So the words "and alternate" were mistaken. We're just striking those two words.
Thank you.
So that's that. Are there any other comments on the minutes? Hearing none, and I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
A motion made by Mr. Chiocchio, seconded by Mr. Sylvain. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, the minutes are accepted. For the record, our next regular meeting is scheduled for January 5th, 2022. And as you were notified via email earlier, I believe it was yesterday, we were going to have a special meeting on December 15th, 2021. I know that everybody already let Joanne know if they could or could not attend. So we will be having that meeting. On the matter of the first public hearing on our agenda this evening, the Planning and Zoning Department received a letter from Michael J. Mizuko, which I'll read very briefly into the record. Again, the letter is from Michael J. Mizuko, 19A Taggart Point Road, Danbury, Connecticut, 06811. Mr. Arnold Finaldi Jr., Chairman, Planning Commission, City of Danbury, 155 Deer Hill Avenue, Danbury, Connecticut, 06810. Re. 12 Great Pasture Road, Danbury, Connecticut, modern self-storage, special exception 782. As agent for the owner applicant, I hereby request that the public hearing scheduled to begin tonight be rescheduled to the next regular Planning Commission meeting to be held on January 5th, 2022. The purpose of this request is to address certain zoning compliance issues raised today by the Planning and Zoning Department staff. Thank you for your consideration and apologize for any inconvenience. If there are any questions regarding the above, kindly contact this office. Sincerely, Michael J. Mizuko, PC, President. So in keeping with this request, we are going to postpone this particular matter until our next meeting, I'm sorry, not our next meeting, but the meeting on January 5th, 2022. I saw Ward Mizuko on earlier. I don't see him anymore. Where'd he go?
He's
Oh, there he
here.
is. Ward, was there anything you wanted to add to this or before we postpone it?
Ward is in
I'm not
refer,
involved. Yeah, I'm
Hold
not
on.
involved in Michael's application.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. My apologies. Okay, great. So we do not need a motion on this particular matter because we haven't opened anything. So
that's correct.
we're simply going to be moving the matter of TDRAP LLC to our meeting on January 5th, 2022. So that should make for a quicker meeting this evening. On the next matter, there's nothing else under public hearings. On the next matter, continuation of public hearing, there are none. And then there's under old business for discussion and possible action. I'm told since I recused myself from this matter, I am going to sign off the meeting. And then I guess what we're doing, Jennifer, is you'll text me when I can come back on. So
Yep.
I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Urice. Joel, it's all yours.
Oh, you're muted, Joel.
Yes, and I did that intentionally. Let me bring my agenda up. We are going to item of old business for discussion and possible action. The Najane Plaza LLC application for special exception revised site plan approval to permit storage of concrete aggregates or manufacture of concrete and concrete products, the storage of bituminous products, storage and sale of building materials, and storage of construction equipment. Najane Pool Industrial Site in the IG 80 zone, 44 Payne Road, in 12004, special exception number 663. Everybody should have the draft of resolution of approval that Ms. Eminger sent around earlier. Ms. Eminger, would you like to say anything about that draft?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. If you can you seat Kevin in place of Arnie?
Yes, Mr. Haas, would you kindly sit in for Mr. Fernaldi for this application?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Eminger.
Okay, so you have a resolution before you dated November 30th, 2021 for Najane Pool Industrial Site. There are a handful of standard whereases. And what I wanted to do, only because there's quite a few uses that are part of this application. I just want to go through. So on page 2, the very first whereas, the project requires issuance of grant special exception and revised site plan approval for the following uses. And these are the permitted uses: carpentry and woodworking, contractor's office, which is the primary use, metal fabrication, sheet metal work, and stone cutting. And again, these are the permitted uses. The special exception uses include the outdoor storage of concrete aggregates, the outdoor storage of bituminous product, the outdoor storage of building materials, and the indoor and outdoor storage, indoor and outdoor storage and incidental repair of company construction equipment. The listed uses are deemed accessory to the primary. The listed uses are deemed accessory to the primary contractor's office use. So again, I just want the commission to understand the primary use is the contractor's office. Everything else they're doing is accessory to that primary use.
That's it?
With that one, yes, that's it. with the uses, yes, that's it.
Okay.
Everything but the kitchen sink, so to speak. And then just to clarify, because I know Joel had a question. So back in 2003 and 2004, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted 3 variances. One to allow parking in the front yard, to reduce the front yard landscaping, and the elimination of the street tree requirement. At that time, the ZBA approved it per plan submitted. And and over the course of, when the plan is approved by ZBA, it does go through minor changes when it goes through a special exception site plan approval process. As long as it's substantially within keeping with the nature of the variance and the intent of what the ZBA granted, then, there's no need to go back to the ZBA. As long as it's, again, in this case, the parking in the front yard has not changed from what the ZBA approved in 2003 and 4. Same with the front yard landscaping, same with the elimination of the street tree requirement. All those improvements along the frontage have consistently remained the same. What's changed over the course of especially this approval process has been the configuration of the storage bins in the rear of the property. It doesn't affect the variances that were granted towards the front of the property. So I just wanted to clarify that. And hopefully that answered your question, Joel, that you had earlier.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So moving on, I'm not going to go through all those whereases unless the commission wants me to. I will move forward to the conditions starting on page 4. And there was some discussion when the commission provided guidance, what happens in the meantime? Because again, the applicant's been operating the site and he's continued to operate the site. We want him to bring the site into compliance, especially before that building is built. So what I work through with the zoning enforcement officer is number 3, which says the applicant's implementation of the approved site improvements address previously noted zoning violations. The commission acknowledges that the business will continue to operate as the applicant implements approved site improvements. As such, these additional conditions are imposed to bring the site into compliance with the zoning regulations and to protect public health, safety, and welfare. A, the applicant shall submit for a zoning permit any additional permits deemed necessary by the ZEO within 7 business days of the recording of the grant of special exception pursuant to number 2 above. The zoning permit shall include work related to the installation of an 8-foot high view restrictive stockade fence from the existing building to the northerly and southerly property lines, and the construction of 9 storage bins along the rear of the property line as shown on the approved plans referenced in Exhibit A. Letter B, said work referenced in 3A above shall be completed within 30 days of the issuance of a zoning permit. Upon completion of said work, the applicant shall obtain written evidence from the ZEO stating that the fence has been properly installed to adequately screen the rear storage areas and the material storage bins were installed in compliance with the approved plans. And said evidence shall be presented to the Department of Planning and Zoning. So what this does, the outdoor storage, which is the bulk of the special exception uses the commission's approving, need to be screened. We want that to happen immediately. And we want those storage bins in immediately because that organizes the site, again, in compliance with what the intent of what they've presented to the Planning Commission. So to do that, because the applicant has 5 years to construct the improvements. We want him to do these beginning improvement. We want him to do these improvements at the beginning part of that. So he's got 60 days to file the grant. We're saying within 7 days, he has to apply for a zoning permit. And then he's got 30 days to install the fence. Again, and the fence is from the existing building. Because remember, all that screening that we talked about during the public hearing pertained to the proposed building. Well, without the proposed building there, it needs to be screened. So the way to handle that is to get the fencing from the existing building. So again, from both corners where you're screening that entire rear storage area. And again, we want to get those bins in there as well to have a more organized site with respect to the storage of all those materials. So before I move on, does anyone have any questions? Okay,
Just an observation. Part of that screening we had in the long term for the total project had to do with a mobile gate.
Yeah. Yep.
And that can't be part of this screening because they have to
Well,
get trucks behind.
yeah, no, they would need as part of this screening, the temporary screening, they would still need to have some type of gate to allow them to come and go.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's expected. But again, the whole rear area needs to be screened, so that gate needs to be screened as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to number 4, this conditions the operations plan revised through September 21, 2021. Any substantive revisions requires submission of a revised site plan application to the commission. 5 and 6 have to do with those additional conditions the commission wanted to see. Cement mixer trucks, except as necessary for the construction of the proposed building, are prohibited on the subject site. Number 6, operations shall be restricted to no more than 1 masonry saw blade, not to exceed 18 inches in radius, and 1 cement mixer with a drum not to exceed a capacity of 9 cubic feet.
Jennifer?
We also,
Question?
yep, go ahead.
Yeah, comment on that one, just on number 6. I suppose you can read this as that they have only 1 masonry saw and 1 cement mixer there. So in case of one of the saws break in the middle of a project, I'm wondering whether or not it can be worded or should be worded that only 1 masonry saw, in operation at any one time, or some, so that they're just basically saying that they're using just 1 saw at a time, but they could have spare saws in case one breaks or something like that. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be too restrictive that they can only, somebody goes there and say, well, you have, 3 masonry saws here when you're only supposed to have 1. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the commission. I can add no more than 1 masonry saw and 1 cement mixer operating at, I don't know, I'd have to think about that. Operating at any one time, something like that.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on this. How do you know whenever you go back there to inspect that all 3 of those weren't operating yesterday? If they're
There's
there,
no way of knowing. I mean, what this does is that it really, again, it's based off of what they presented to the commission, and we wanted to make sure that they weren't doing more than what was presented. Or again, on the flip side, if the property is sold and someone else comes in, now all of a sudden they're running, cement mixers and masonry saws, that's all they're doing. This was the way the commission had requested a way to condition, restrict, so you didn't have too much of one thing.
I appreciate Commissioner Kiyoki's concern for the applicant, but we really only talked about 1s whenever we were in public hearing. Just so there couldn't be 2s operating.
Well, I think
I don't
know, if you restrict it to operating at any one time, I think gets you there. I understand Joel's comment that if you have more than 1 there, you can always use it if no one else is there. I get
Temptation.
that. No question. To me, it just seems like it's pretty harsh for the applicant if they can just have 1 saw there and they're time straits and the saw breaks and they need to get the thing done. It seems like they would have a spare there anyways to use. And if they're doing this primarily inside, I know there is some use outside. I mean, quite honestly, even if they had 2 saws going at one time inside, I don't know even that's a big deal, but I know we limited it to 1, so we'll stick with that. But I don't know, I just feels like it's a bit restrictive for them.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Vice Chairman?
Yes,
You know, I would tend to lean more on the side of Bob's thinking, because I did feel it was a little harsher, restrictive as we talked about it. But I understand where you're coming from. I would tend to think that, you know, if we did have the language in there that it should only be 1, you know, that seems similar to any other restriction we might put on an operation of any kind. That you know, you're not supposed to be doing it doesn't mean they're not doing it when we're not looking, but they shouldn't be doing it because it's not in the agreement. So I'd be okay with the change.
well, I own some, if you will, production quality equipment, and I've used them, some of the pieces over there, 70, 80, 90 years old and still run just fine because they built them well back then. They don't break down very often, and they're not cheap. I mean, you're not going to go out and buy a new one, have it on shelf just in case, I don't think. You might go out and rent one, but I don't know. I'm not inclined to make a change, but we can, if somebody wants to make a motion to change that, we can vote on it, but I'm not too keen on it myself.
It's Kevin here. I'm kind of with Joel on the not changing it. They could run 1 cement mixer for 2 hours and then start up another one right after that. And then do the same thing with a saw, 1 saw running, and then they switch and use another saw 30 seconds later.
What's wrong with, this is Helen, Mr. Chairman, what's wrong with that? I'm not following why that's a bad thing.
I think it could become production. Straight up, where they're just, and one piece of equipment can do so much in a day, but they could be running multiple pieces, just not at the same moment. So if we only want them producing 1 yard of concrete at a time, they could be doing it continuously with 5 different concrete mixers to be able to do it one after another.
Right, as opposed to mix up 1/3 of a yard, clean up the equipment, mix up another 1/3 of a yard, clean up the equipment. Yes, I understand that as well.
They're gonna run that concrete mixer continuously. It's gonna empty, they're gonna fill it back up and empty it again, right? I mean, I don't know that they'll run more than 1 on that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, can I just ask what the intent of this requirement is to begin with? To me, it meant less noise, but
Yes,
than having
Yes.
2 concurrent. But that doesn't mean that the noise can't go on longer or not. That's a different question. So the question is, if we're worried about noise, do we have to, it sounds like we want to restrict the noise to half a day or 3, you know, so if you go back to the root of why this is in here at all, to me, it's the noise. So we have to ask ourselves, do we want to restrict noise in terms of time? Because that's not what we're doing here, I don't think. Because you could.
I
mixer all day.
don't think the intent was to restrict the noise as far as limiting the amount of time. I think we were limiting the noise as to the amount of noise, right? So by saying they're going to use one saw at a time and that 1 mixer at a time, and the mixer, you know, we were concerned that it would that the mixer was going to be too big. I think is what we were, and so I think to Helen's point, the concern over the noise, if we just have the wording as to only 1 in use at a time, I think that gets around the noise issue that we were concerned about. I think Helen was right on that.
I'm going to bounce in one more time, go back to my original point. We talked about this in public hearing. The client spoke to it in public hearing, did not have a problem with it during public hearing. I don't know that we need to be rethinking what happened in public hearing at this point in the game. They were okay with, they'd object to it. We talked about it. We talked about the size of the saw, the size of the mixer, and we never said saws or mixers in the whole conversation. It was a saw and a mixer. And if they were okay with it, I don't think we need to be second guessing them.
Yeah,
Fair.
yep, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Can I
Continue,
Go on.
please. Thank you.
Number 7. So number 7, the outdoor storage area shall be restricted to the areas shown on the approved site plan, as referenced in Exhibit A. All drive aisles, including the aisle to the rear of the building, shall remain free and clear. Again, we want to hold them to what they've approved for, what was presented to the commission. Number 8, this has to do with that evergreen hedgerow towards the front. We want them to routinely evaluate the growth, and if need be, prune it back, minimum of twice a year, or as deemed necessary by the city of Danbury. So if we go out there or we've gotten a complaint and the hedgerow is overgrown, or it's hit the season where it's just popped and you can't see up and down the road, we have the ability to require them to prune that. Number 9 has to do, and this is in part a standard comment, standard requirement. The on-site storm drainage shall remain private. Regular maintenance by the property owner is mandatory. The storage, this is new, and this speaks to some of the concerns that the engineering department had with the design of the drainage system. The storage of materials on top of the components of the drainage system is prohibited, and the 10-foot wide gravel access to the detention galleries shall be maintained and remain free and clear of debris, materials, and/or equipment at all times. Again, that protects that small area where they've got the galleries, the basin, and then that small little gravel access area to get to that system. Number 12, so those were the general requirements, general conditions, and then prior to the issuance of any permits. So again, this is after they've done the work as part of number 3 above. They have to comply with the engineering department's comments. And number 13, prior to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance. So once the building is up, we want them to permanently install that 8-foot high view restrictive fence as shown on the approved plans. The work within the right of way, which included that mountable curb in the driveway, they'll need to construct that. And again, construction services will evaluate the vegetation at that point, and if it needs to be pruned, they'll require it at the time. And that is kind of the bulk of the conditions. Are there any questions?
Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, Helen?
Yes, Ms. Hofstadter.
I guess I have a question about the summary of operations, which I'm not sure if I reviewed it. It was a while ago, and I don't know where that is. But anyway, so it's a reference to that. So things like doing that number 8 as a requirement here, evergreen hedgerow shall be routinely evaluated. And I don't know what routinely even means from a time perspective, but anyway, it should be, I like that you have it, so it should be pruned a minimum of twice a year or as deemed necessary. On-site storm drainage system, is any of that, and the whole thing about the cement mixer, number of mixers and the size and any of that in the operations manual from an operations standpoint? And should they be?
I don't, again, those restrictions came after, during discussion. So they're clearly not in the operations plan. Of course, I don't have the full file. I brought the approval home with me. I didn't bring the file folder home with me. But the operations plan, again, goes through and discusses, all the uses, storage of all the materials, and products in the storage bins, and general operations of the site and the type of work they'll be doing on the site, the stone cutting and some of the cement mixing. It doesn't necessarily restrict like we do in the approval. Again, that's a function of the commission asking for further restrictions. So it's not in the operations plan, but the operations plan does outline how the business will be run on site.
Okay, I mean, I don't know how that gets, when you get new employees or whatever, I don't know how they are supposed to know not to put anything on top of the drainage areas, and that's why I guess I was asking about that. You would think that would be a sort of a Bible for any of the employees, unless I'm not right about that, but.
Ms.
that's-
Hostetter, it
Sorry.
would something like posting a sign requiring, nothing on top and nothing in front, satisfy your concern with that?
Yeah, any way that it get the communication to the employees as they come and go. I mean, you're gonna have people that join the team and others that leave, So yeah, that's perfect. I mean, yeah.
Could something like that we worked in, Miss Imager, without a lot of trouble?
I don't think so. I mean, we can add, we don't necessarily want them to revise the plan because that note is already on the plan, but we can do prior to the issuance of zoning compliance, the CEO shall verify that, a sign stating the following has been installed in the detention area.
Okay.
Something that just gets a communication of these restrictions to everybody that's on site. I mean, I think that would be helpful because a person can, who's working there can violate that without even knowing because they don't, didn't have the restriction noted.
I mean, again, it's up to the property owner. It's up to the manager on site to control the site. And
Right. So you're saying we can let this go, that point go then, I guess. And
No,
that's
I think
okay. I don't, I don't know. I just
think
just worry about some of these restrictions aren't going to get communicated to people who, then do something they shouldn't be doing.
I mean, again, that's why, so a couple things. So that's why we have the storage bins. So they're required to place those materials in those storage bins. And I think it's a good idea to have the sign on top of the detention system. That's an easy requirement. That's fairly straightforward. But I mean, again, that's why, we pushed as staff to have those storage bins shown in a more organized way. So it's clear to whomever's operating on the site that this is where the material goes. You can't just put it wherever you want. It's required to go in a specific location.
That's true. Okay. Well, anyway, I thought I'd bring it up and, however you think we should, or if we should do
Good
anything.
point. Miss Emmerger, would you pursue your suggestion?
I can add that.
Thank you. Any other comments, commissioners?
Nope.
If none, I will entertain a motion to either approve or deny.
I make a motion to approve this application with the conditions as noted. We'll leave it at that, but joyfully I will say, I make a motion to approve.
As amended, okay. I had a second. Anybody?
Second.
Mr. Salvain, seconds. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
your project is approved.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I will turn the gavel back to Chairman Fernaldi.
Okay, I'm just texting him to come back.
Well, we can still talk about it. You know, from practical standpoint, I'm not sure how many new employees on the construction site get handed a operations manual and are told to read this first.
I don't know. I think it's a great idea myself, just saying.
Yeah, I think they should, but I'm not sure how often that
Yeah.
happens.
I don't think that's the reality of it, but that, again, that's why we have all of those restrictions in place.
And we have zoning enforcement officers to go out and enforce those things.
Yes.
And one that's not afraid to red tag a site. I know for facts.
Yes. Okay. Oh, you're muted, Arnie.
Oh, sorry about that. My apologies. Your chairman was muted. I apologize for that. Assuming we're all set to move on to the next item on our agenda, you'll see under referrals an A3A referral petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend the master plan, etc. That matter will be discussed, as shown, that matter will be discussed at the special meeting scheduled for December 15th, 2021. She'll be getting more on that as we approach the date of the special meeting. There's nothing under new business. Under correspondence, the meeting schedule for 2022 was included. And for other matters for reference only, you'll see 5 items that will be coming up in the future for us on the Planning Commission. Is there anything else?
How about a motion to adjourn?
Well, Joel, if you're so inclined, fire away.
I did just now.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Urice. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, whatever. Pick one.
Motion made, seconded. I'd just like to comment on what an important contribution I have made since I've returned to this meeting. I think you're all well served by my contribution here. Okay, a motion has been made and seconded for adjournment. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed. This meeting rather, is adjourned. Don't forget again, the special meeting December 15th. So I'll talk to you all then. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
ladies.
everybody.
Good meeting.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.